How's it going, you guys? Welcome to the Liberty Bowl. Back to the weekend meetup edition. We got our good pal John Bay over here. We also got the old Liberty Swine here. How you guys doing this weekend?
Doing good.
Damn good.
Enjoying the nice cool down.
Oh yeah, always.
Oh, yeah,
This is the best
definitely.
time of year here.
Yep. So we're gonna go ahead and be just kind of going over two topics today. It's pretty much the two major topics going on in the news cycles right now. It's of course, besides midterms, but we're gonna be talking about Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter, and we're gonna be talking about what happened with Paul Pelosi. All right. But real quick, John, I just want to get your quick insight, John Bay. So you're from Texas. Are you a Beto guy? You one of those Beto males?
Oh yeah, for sure. Beto all day, dude.
What is it that you like about the guy?
He's not Greg Abbott. Every election's a referendum on the incumbent, right? I mean, at the end of the day, Beto's not a perfect candidate, but he'll take Texas in a very different direction than Greg Abbott would. And I think right now, especially when you look at things like, a big issue in Texas right now is female autonomy, right? And because obviously what happened on Roe v. Wade happened at a federal level, but what's happened in Texas is at a state level. And, that's pretty crazy, man. You know what I mean? I mean, basically deputizing private citizens so that, so they can, sue people that got abortions, right? For 10 grand a piece. I mean, that's pretty crazy. I think we're all on the same level there. But yeah. As far as, but we were going in the direction of the Elon Musk Twitter thing, right?
Right. Yep. Right.
So yeah, man. I mean, honestly, I think there's way more hoopla being made about that than needs to be made. I mean, personally, I don't use Twitter very much. I mean, I have a Twitter account. I really don't keep up on it. I've never really tried to make a Twitter following. So yeah, I mean, life just kind of goes on, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, private citizens have, they have the ability to be able to do this, to be able to purchase a company. Now, people are saying, well, is, Elon Musk going to fight for free speech? No, man. He doesn't care about free speech, dude. Come on now. I mean, I think that I saw something, I haven't verified if this is true, but I saw something where someone's account got banned already for criticizing Elon, and basically the role that he's taken. So I don't know if that's true or not. I just know that the account was there. The account's not there anymore. Some people are saying, that person got banned. So, what does freedom of speech really mean, right? Can we just go broadcasting the N-word as much as possible? That's not useful to society or to a social media platform or anything like that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. If he does what he says he's going to do, that's awesome. Whatever, more power to him.
So what do you define as hate speech then? Because I mean, you say it's not productive to go around shouting the N-word all day, but I mean, have you ever heard of rap music before?
Well, it's a very different type of N-word. We all know the difference between ending that with an A and a hard R, right? It's a very different connotation and meaning. And then, of course, the person saying it, is gonna be a big difference as well, right? So, but as far as hate speech, then yeah, I mean, there's everyone knows that people troll online, right? But there's a certain level that people really shouldn't be allowed to go across, you know what I mean? And because you don't know who you're talking to or any of that sort of stuff. So you're talking to a 12-year-old kid, and then you just start, coming out with some real hardcore, adult level expletives, right? Stuff that a 12, 13-year-old would never even think of.
Yeah,
what I mean?
Have you ever played video games before?
Well,
Them 12, 13-year-old kids, they're brutal.
There's a reason why they addressed it, the way Xbox Live is done. And there was a reason why Xbox will ban you, if you take the same type of language in Apex nowadays as, we used to hear in Halo growing up, right? And there, it's not, it's not useful to anybody or to society or any of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think, there should be a healthy amount of moderation in anything, right? You don't want to just have videos of people getting beheaded all day, trending on Twitter and things like that, right? So,
all right. So let's go to the Swine over here. So, what is your stance on obviously Elon Musk is saying that there's going to be limits to what is defined as free speech and what's considered hate speech and things like that. In your opinion, what is your thoughts on hate speech? Does it exist? Is it a real thing? And if so, what type of speech should and should not be allowed?
I think that there's absolutely no such thing as hate speech. I think that speech is speech. It's just words. And unless it directly incites violence or, harm to somebody else, there should be no limitations. And regardless if something is, productive or not, it really depends on, everything's subjective, right? And everybody has the freedom to follow that, scroll past it. You know what I mean? And obviously, there's a mute button, there's a block button, there's so many different options if that you feel that certain types of rhetoric or whatnot or are not for you. And I think that Elon is obviously the dude's in it for a profit. Okay. I mean, I agree with John as far as that's concerned, that his main thing is not freedom of speech. Mm-hmm. But I think that there is enough of the intention there just because he himself is a troll. I mean, he wants to, wants people to be able to say what they think, basically. And, there's always going to be someone that contends what someone else is saying is offensive or abhorrent. And I don't believe that anyone has agreed to arbiters as far as speech is concerned. And this isn't like just a regular, this isn't Facebook. This isn't, even though it's one of the smaller ends of the big tech companies, it has become the public square. I mean, you have the White House, politicians, the president themselves posting on there. There should be absolutely no blocking or removing. It's almost become like a utility, like a phone company.
Right. I definitely.
So a quick question, though. Yeah. I mean, so what's the difference then between Twitter, blocking or banning users versus YouTube regulating the comments on its comment section? I mean, do you think we should just be able to comment anything on YouTube videos, or do you think that's within YouTube's realm to be able to be like, oh yeah, we're not doing that, or Fox News or CNN?
They're not held legally culpable for anything posted on their platforms, and again, everybody has the freedom to block people or scroll past things.
Right, and I just want to also say it to you guys out there, the fans, that every time I upload a video, I always make sure I go down and allow all comments. And there's certain ones that you could no comments. You could restrict comments that may be deemed offensive. I always allow all comments on my channel. I do not want anything flagged, anything like that. If you have a disagreement with me, I will gladly be willing to settle it out with you in the comment section. And that's what I believe America's all about. Actually, George Takei, everything he says I generally disagree with, but he actually said something just the other day on Twitter, and I actually kind of retweeted it and gave him a little bit of props. He basically just said, I'm not fucking going anywhere. I'm going to fucking stay here. And if that means that I have to fucking stay here and stand up and fight against all these fucking, people with their ideas and shit like that, well, then that's what I'm going to do. Good. That nobody fucking wants any of these fucking lefties to leave the platform. Nobody wants anybody to be deplatformed or not have a place to speak their voice and state their opinions. That's why I like to bring on all people from different political opinions onto the show. Because that's what America really should be about. Is if you have a disagreement with somebody, like, okay, granted, yes, you do have a mute button, you could hit it, or I mean, really open discussion, debate. Being able to actually, if you feel strongly enough about something, to be able to stand up and argue what you believe in. Or at the same time, maybe you might discover that maybe I didn't quite have the perspective that I thought I did on this, and maybe other people can learn something from other people. That's why I like to talk to all kinds of people. I on my Twitter account, I follow just as many left wings as I do right wingers, and granted, I do a lot of trolling on there, so.
Can I ask you, Blurry, though, who are some people that you consider like left-wingers? I'm just curious.
Shit, well, you, for one, I would consider. Generally, Democrat Party, people that are more about the collective and speaking from the heart rather than the brain. People that are more about, well, let's clothe the poor. Let's put the poor into houses and things like that, rather than, well, let's figure out why the poor people are on the streets, rather than, well, let's figure out what we can do to fix the problem so that way people are able to fend for themselves, rather than having society need to come together to collectively, I guess, coddle people that want to, deliberately throw their lives away.
But I just mean, like, who are like a couple like political leaders that you follow that you would consider like left wing leaders, right? That you follow on Twitter or Facebook or something.
Well, definitely AOC for one. I follow AOC, quite often. I definitely follow Biden. I follow fucking Kamala Harris. I follow basically all the left wing Democrat leaders. I follow Katie Hobbs quite frequently. I'm always up in Katie Hobbs' comment section.
Is she the one out of Southern California, the one that does the? She got a lot of push from the hearings that she did for like the Wells Fargo executives. Is that who Katie Hobbs is?
Katie Hobbs. She's the current Secretary of State in Arizona, and she's running for governor against Carrie Lake.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah, I haven't been keeping up the local elections out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because I feel like a lot of those people, so AOC is definitely, what most people would consider left wing, and I think within the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party is not so much like the Republican Party where you have a very firm ideology. It's a lot looser in ideologies, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the biggest criticisms that left wing people will give, other people on what you would probably consider the left. Are people that are establishment, Democrats, people that are still capitalists, people that are what are considered social Democrats, right? So, so it's interesting because it's like, yeah, AOC is definitely a true progressive, and there's definitely like true progressives that are out there, but they're very far and few in between. Like Nancy Pelosi is not what most people would consider nowadays to be a leftist. She's an establishment, status quo capitalist, who basically all the things that you'll probably criticize her for are things that I could criticize her for too.
She's a corp
in the stock market and all that. She's a corporatist, exactly. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, is that we don't consider corporate Democrats to be left-wing Democrats. They're sellout Democrats. They're the ones that are basically put there so that we have, some sort of semblance of controlled opposition. Well, so there can be never true left-wing movement.
That's something that occurs on both sides of the aisle too. They're essentially factions. Just like we have the MAGA Republicans, and we also have the rhinos. We have the people that it's the same on both sides. We have people that are ultra America first.
Though,
we have people that are
with the right wingers though. You kind of have it's more of your evangelicals versus your libertarians. That's kind of been the split. But neither way, you guys are both very firm on ideology. Both tend to vote very similar for similar types of candidates.
Yeah, and that's generally I don't see what the problem is with that.
Yeah. I'm just saying there's not a lot of friction between the libertarians and evangelicals. Whereas with the Democrats, it's like, you'll literally have like BLM activists, interrupting Hillary Clinton rallies because Hillary Clinton isn't left wing enough.
So by evangelicals, are you basically referring to hardcore conservative stick up the ass Bible thumpers, or are you actually referring to the religious aspect?
I say evangelicals can be a broad range of Christians. 50 million evangelicals in America. So there's some evangelicals are the Pentecostal praying with snakes type, right? Some are Southern Baptists, still go to a church in a suit and tie, right? So there's different ways around it, but that's always been kind of the split within the Republican Party. But I feel like the evangelicals have always been winning that. There's a very small amount of conservatives or actual libertarians, right? You had Ron Paul, and that was like it, Justin Amash, maybe. So it's like, just a real small handful of people. Whereas the Republican Party is definitely and the MAGA also is definitely dominated by evangelicals as well, right? So it's so that I think that's a big strength the conservatives have and the Republican Party has, is because they'll compromise. Like evangelicals will compromise with their belief system and vote for Donald Trump or vote for Mitt Romney. You know what I mean? So
let me ask you: do you believe in any form of natural law or any form of spirituality?
What do you mean? Of course, I believe in spirituality. Spirituality is a key tenet for being a complete human.
All right, and what would you say that your I guess spiritual leaning is? Whether it's I don't know if you go to a actual organized church, or if you just
I don't go to church or anything. I consider myself a Christian. I think a lot of Christians probably wouldn't consider me a Christian. But I consider myself a Christian.
Okay, so basically, what's the whole difference between? I mean, because yes, I will agree that a lot of the more Christian people are on the right, and they do have a bit more sway in the decisions that go on. But honestly, I clearly am not a very organized religious person or a very right hand path religious person. I believe more in the spiritual natural law aspect of things. But at the same time, I'm not completely opposed to Christianity at all. In fact, I believe it's probably one of the greatest guidelines as to how society should ultimately run. And ultimately, I feel like America should have some sort of moral compass, to so to speak. I mean, essentially, it's no mystery that the United States was built on one nation under God aspect. And personally, I don't have a problem with that.
That saying, "one nation under God," is actually a relatively new saying. I think that was put on money in the 1900s. It was either the late 1800s or early 1900s when that started to be printed on money.
Are you talking about one nation under God or in God we trust?
Yeah. So I think it's actually one nation under God as a pledge of allegiance, which was definitely started in the 1900s. So, so both those are relatively newer things, and the idea is, to kind of fuse, nationalism with some sort of spirituality aspect, right? Because, especially for, again, the evangelical movement, a lot of that goes hand in hand, right? They believe in the idea of God's kingdom on earth, that it's their role to basically bring up on the end of days. This is why evangelicals have such fervent support for the state of Israel. It's not because they care about Jewish people. It's because it's necessary in order to bring about the second coming of Jesus Christ. So, it's, I mean, I don't think we need to have any sort of state religion, right? I don't think you're suggesting that either.
Right.
But yeah, I think there's good and bad things with every religion. And I think when we look at the good aspects of Christianity, be kind to one another, love that neighbor, things like that.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff I buy into. When you look at what Jesus did, helping, widows and poor kids and orphans, people like that. I mean, that's the type of Jesus I like to buy into. The type of Jesus that I kind of leave behind is more of the, Old Testament, come in here and let's kill everybody and take all your women type of Old Testament stuff. I just kind of leave that out of it.
Of course. I mean, well, that's also the reason why it's the Old Testament. That's also the reason why, Jesus, essentially said that, or not Jesus, basically the Bible essentially says that that's the reason why we don't sacrifice animals, why we don't do things like that anymore, because that was the old ways. Basically, after Jesus Christ, that was the sacrifice for all of man, and essentially that was the ultimate sacrificial lamb that basically took in all of our sins and died for us, so to speak.
Yeah, God killed his own kid for us. Brutal. Ryan, you spiritual at all, man?
I believe that God is more than that humans can fathom. You know what I mean? I believe that the whole created in our image, right, is an obvious takeaway from everything functions on energy. The universe, the sun. I mean, you can observe those things with the naked eye, basically, and that's God, man. You know what I mean? The universe. I mean, it's spiritual in a sense. I believe it's strictly a personal relationship, and I think that organized religion is absolute trash. It's caused more death and conflicts than probably any other thing in the history of humans. But at the same time, I agree that there has to be like a moral compass that like a cohesive cultural thing, and that's one of the things that made America what it was. You know what I mean? Was a common vision on morals and values. And I think that if you teach them as the word of God or as common sense, they mean the same thing. And, I think that the religious aspect has always been a method of control. And it's a way of forcing morals on people that maybe otherwise wouldn't follow them without the threat of hell or translated into government aspects, jail, I guess.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like this, the shall not kill, shall not steal, shall not fucking, covet thy neighbor's wives. To me, you don't even need to be taught those things. It's like a genetic memory. I mean, you feel in yourself when you do wrong. That adrenaline kick and shit, that's your body telling you something's wrong.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I mean, why do you need a book to tell you that?
Right. I mean, there's a natural order to the way that people act. It's people call it instinct. Other people call it universal law. There's a difference between right and wrong. Generally, people know the difference between right and wrong, and everybody is in fact right and at other times wrong. That's why my general stance on religion is it's a great philosophy for a positive humanity, essentially. But just as the fact that everyone says that their religion is the right one, Well, if they are all right, then that essentially makes everyone at least all a little bit wrong,
Mhm.
Just in the
I got a comment though. I got to make one quick comment on John's spiel there. Evangelicals are absolute complete morons
right.
that are easily led to believe some outlandish shit. And I've voted Republican for over a decade now. I definitely considered myself more libertarian leaning during the Ron Paul years, but nowadays you have to be a different faction, regardless if you vote Republican. And I know I refer to myself at this point as a classical liberal. And it's just one aspect of the party. And there's a few statesmen left that you didn't mention there. Thomas Massey and Rand Paul, man. You got to throw them out there too, bro.
Yep.
That's true. That's true. Man, I forgot what I was gonna say. No worries.
Well, it sounds like
Sorry about it.
sounds like it's
No,
time
no,
for
no,
a
you're good. You're good.
sounds like it's time for a smoke break, you guys.
No.
All right.
That was a good little spin-off, right? From
Right.
Elon to fucking spirituality.
Fucking Elon to Jesus and everything in between.
I mean, he has a cult following himself, so.
All right.
Where I wanted to say with that, though, what I didn't get to was, like I was saying earlier, I told you, Brian, let's not start sucking Elon D just yet. Parler's a prime example. They were supposed to be a free speech platform. They were removed from the app stores, Apple and Google, and weren't brought back until they acquiesced to censor speech.
Yep.
And I don't see it changing for Twitter just because Elon fucking bought it.
Right, and we already see, all the these different advertisers and companies that are threatening to pull their advertisements off of Twitter if Elon were to allow Donald Trumpster to get back on there. But at the same time, obviously, I don't feel even if Elon were to allow Trump to get back on there, that Trump would ever go back on Twitter. If he were, that would literally be committing complete, financial suicide for himself for everything that he's invested in the True Social. True Social right now is literally the only place that you can go to hear, fucking what Donald Trump is talking about. And I don't think he's going to go back to Twitter for nothing.
Right. Except for how the media likes to comb truth for his words to post up and
right.
Speak
right.
out of context on.
Right. But yeah, it definitely. Obviously, it's not going to be an absolutely free speech platform. I mean, everyone was talking about the over abundant use of the N-word that's gone on over the last 2 days on Twitter. I mean, they even put graphs and shit like that. But obviously, it's because of day one. It's day fucking one. People are fucking literally trying to dip their toes in the water. But of course, most of these people are fucking morons because
By saying the N-word.
right. I mean, it's
and I think a point that I kind of forgot to bring up too is that there's a big difference, I feel like, with freedom of speech on the internet and freedom of speech in person. Because freedom of speech in actual society, in person, you're always regulated by the social aspect of, if I do something too outlandish, I'll be outcasted by the community, right? Even if you don't necessarily get your ass beat, like, you can't just, walk down the street, yelling like Heil Hitler, you know what I mean? F them ends, right? Like all day. Like eventually someone's going to come beat your ass or someone's going to record you and
right.
They're going to post your, who you are. And then everyone's going to be like, oh, that guy? Yeah, I don't want to hang out with that guy anymore, right? The difference is online, you can be pretty much completely anonymous, right? Mm-hmm. And so people can just say things that are just ridiculous, you know what I mean? And I think where a lot of these rules come into place, especially it comes from a cyberbullying aspect. Because there's one thing where, again, as adults, you know what I mean? We can read through comments and be like, whatever. But when you're a 12, 13-year-old kid, right? And let's say you're already outcasted at school and then someone's cyberbullying you saying, hey, why don't you kill yourself, that becomes a very big issue. You know what I mean? Or that's for a developing mind.
Can I retort to that real fast?
Yeah.
That's funny that you mentioned cyberbullying because my YouTube is currently suspended for cyberbullying. Okay? Yep. And I made a video about Carrie Lake versus Katie Hobbs, and every clip that was on it came from YouTube. So anything you support, the children will be used against you. You know what I mean? Like how the whole meaning behind freedom of speech is for you to be able to criticize the government and the people that run it. And I'm being called a cyberbully for saying Katie Hobbs is a fucking moron. Vote for Carrie Lake.
Yeah. Right. And that's purely just kind of campaigning for one side, and essentially he got banned for cyberbullying for campaigning for Carrie Lake.
And I legitimately have the screenshot of the message from YouTube. Like, I posted a video this morning with it in it on Rumble and BitChute, man. I mean, it's not an exaggeration or anything.
And that's a tough thing, right? Because I think a lot of people can definitely come up with an instance of where a content moderator got something incorrect or just completely took something wrong, and I was banned for 7 days or something like that for something I was saying, and it wasn't something that I said necessarily to this person, is that I was quoting a supposed conversation that would be taking place, right? And because I said faggot in there, right, it immediately triggered a thing, and it bans me. But the context of the comment was, if this person had said this, how are you supposed to address it, right? And so, but it was just like, in full context, obviously it all makes sense, but that one line of that one comment all of a sudden gets someone banned, right? So it is tough, man. I mean, to kind of figure out where's that right line, and so I definitely agree with you there.
So I want to get on to a bit of another topic So what makes a protected class of people, right? Like, why is it that you can't say the N-word, but you could say cracker? Why is it that you can say that white people? Why is it that you could say white people have enslaved and fucking brutalized every other nation on earth in order to get what they have, but you can't say that Jewish people run the world or run the media? Like, what is it that creates a protected class of people, and why are some people more victim than other people? What makes a certain class of people protected rather as opposed to others?
Well, to address a couple of things you said there, like cracker and white people doesn't have the same historical connotation that black people in the N-word has. So there's just a big difference there.
There's no black person alive that has historical connotation with anything.
Well, it's more than that, though. It's also it's within living memory. Like, literally, people's grandpas were prevented from using someone's water fountain. Like, this is stuff that's really recent.
The name slave comes from Slavic white people. You know what I mean? The term slave is came from white people.
I don't know about that. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know too much about etymology.
But essentially, there's not a race of people on this earth that has not been victimized, that has not been at one point or another genocided. There's really no one that if really nobody in America, at least at this present point in time, could really say that they've been victimized because of the color of their skin. At least in my opinion, of course, people will say that oh yes,
I kicked out of the game room for being Asian in Odessa, Texas. I shit you not, bro. Literally, they were like, my boss will fire me if he sees you in here. We don't allow Asian people in here.
And that's ridiculous.
Crazy. Yeah,
and that's fucking ridiculous. The same as the fact that white people could get kicked out of multicultural rooms because, quote, they don't have a culture, or they're it's a
I think white people not having a culture is a mean thing to say. I definitely think that's true, because I think white people have a very vibrant culture, and I think as a minority it's very easy to see that, especially if you lived outside of the country. It's easy to see that there's a distinct American culture and there's distinct cultures that the white community has. And it can vary depending on different things too. I will agree in terms of race. I do think white people get the short end of the stick. I think, within living memory, it's always been kind of fun to make fun of white people and sort of off limits to make fun of, especially black people, but really of most minority groups. As an Asian person, I've always felt like Asian issues were never really treated seriously. And so it's just one of those things where people would call me chink growing up, but if somebody said the N-word, the fucking world stopped. You know what I mean? Yeah, so I can definitely understand that. But at the same time, it's like shit was slanted another way, really fucked up for a long ass time, right? And I'm not someone that believes that necessarily excuses behavior, but it makes me understand the behavior a little bit more, right? So as far as what pertains to protected class, I think it just depends on what's going on, socially, and what the culture values, right? And one protected class that we have in Texas is veterans.
Right.
So like, veterans literally don't have to pay property taxes. There's no income tax in Texas. So property taxes is the main form of taxes that you pay to the state, the government. Veterans don't have to pay that, right? So there's a bunch of other benefits that they do have, and so there is a protected class, and we've determined that because those are people that we respect as heroes and in our society, right? We see that as like, oh, you guys have sacrificed something, even though a lot of these veterans, they never saw combat. They might have just been 3 years in the late 80s and just hung out, like in Hawaii the whole time,
right.
Who knows, right?
Right.
But it's like, but we've determined that this is a protected class. And we've gone so far as to say, like, so the average Texan, if I was to start burning the American flag in front of them, they will knock me out. Like, I will get punched in the face. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's not about freedom of speech. It's like, bro, that you do not go there. You know what I mean? Like that's too far. There's a protected class of people, and there's reasons for that. So I don't think it's necessarily 100% right. Do I think veterans should have to pay taxes like everybody else? Sure. You know what I mean? But I also,
are most of these, whatever. I mean, of course, the veterans thing, yes, that is by law, but as per other things like, burning American flag and shit like that, I feel like that's more of the people are going to come and, do something about that. It's not, something protected by law.
As a society. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Whereas things like anti-Semitism is literally protected by law. Talking about, people of color, in a derogatory way online will get you banned. Talking about white people in a derogatory way will get you fucking, it depends on how far you go with it. Of course, if you call towards violence towards white people, you'll probably get banned. But if you just say some derogatory, shit about white people, you're probably going to get boosted,
Well, if you get really specific with it, though, you'll definitely get banned. Like, I wouldn't even have to say anything necessarily violent. Like, if I just, said like a bunch of like Italian American slurs, like I'm pretty sure it'd ban me. You know what I mean? It'd be like, no, that's not cool, bro.
But at the same time, I don't think they should. I think you should be able to say whatever you want about whoever you want, and ultimately, if it's something online, I mean, Elon has been talking about how he's going to try and make it so that your specific what you see is curated to what you want to see. If you don't want to see hardcore right wingers and things like that, there's going to be an option to where it's going to be an algorithmic thing that it's going to filter off that stuff from your view, and essentially. He's trying to make it to where basically you can create it and make it to be your own space. You can see whatever you want to see, and so on. So I don't see a problem with that.
Works, right?
Somewhat. I mean, to an extent, but
that's how I thought the whole thing. I thought it's one of the reasons why we've gotten more divisive is because social media creates algorithms that we only see the type of stuff that we want to see or want to be surrounded by, and then we just have the ability to block anything that's opposing, right? So we never get a lot. So the average person never sees a healthy amount of both sides, right? Because we're determining which are both sides that we see. So that's why I asked you earlier, who do you define as left wing? Because if you're telling me Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are left wing people to follow, you're not following real left wing people.
Let me go and hop in my Twitters real quick.
I watch Jimmy Dore every day, man. You know what I'm saying?
There we go.
Russell Brand, up until recently, has been a complete leftist. You know what I'm saying?
Rob Reiner.
Rogan is a leftist, even though he holds some views of being free. You know what I'm saying? He's still a leftist. I read Rob Reiner's fucking shenanigans on Twitter on a daily basis.
I love Rob Reiner
you know what I mean?
on
Twitter.
Rob Reiner, man.
Dude, I sometimes I wonder if it's like a mockumentary like a Spinal Tap 2.0, or if he's actually this I don't even want to get his channel banned, but the guy is a complete nincompoop in my view, man. The shit he says is nonsensical, and he spends more time trying to convince people that we live under a false dichotomy as far as politics is concerned than actually speaking anything worth value. I mean, he repeats the word democracy, I'd say probably about every 7.6 seconds.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty much, I follow anyone in Democratic politics and basically anyone that supports them in the comment section. Basically anybody that if I write out a response to them, if they respond back to me, then I'll go ahead and follow them. Generally, like I say, I like open discourse. I like talking to people on the left hand side, just as much as I like talking to people on the right hand side. To an extent. I'm on True Social, but I really check it out maybe once a month, just because I prefer argumentation over echo chamber. But
it's pretty rare, though. Most people don't. Like John was just saying. That was supposed to be one of the reasons that Elon bought Twitter, man, was because of the creation of echo chambers. I agree, man.
All right, so you guys want to get on to what's happening with old Paul Pelosi and Nancy Pelosi and all that?
Yeah,
right?
What is happening with Paul Pelosi?
All right, so as I'm sure
they're getting hammered.
All right, so I don't know. You may or may not have heard. He was attacked the other night with a hammer by a radical something or another. It's still, of course, up in the air. Of course, everyone's trying to fucking. Oh no, he belonged to one of these guys. He belonged to this group. He belonged to that group. But yeah. So
ultra.
Right. All right. So there's a whole lot of controversy going on because the whole story is just, it's really kind of fishy. So Paul Pelosi is obviously an 82-year-old fucking fragile, walking fucking paper thin skin with glass bones, and he got attacked by a 42-year-old guy with a hammer. And so they say it took, I think, somewhere about like 3 minutes. Don't quote me, I could be wrong, but from the time of entry for the police to show up, things like that. And Paul Pelosi was able to make the phone call for help himself from the bathroom. There's audio of it. Paul Pelosi's saying, "I don't know who this guy is, but his name is David DePepe, and he's a friend." So,
and he's having some sort of breakdown.
Right. So, so there's a whole lot of shit going on to it. Okay. So of course, he has reposted, memes, things like that, referring to, different sorts of, conspiracies, all kinds of shit right going on. And apparently he is a member of the Green Party from San Francisco. He is a former nudist, makes hemp jewelry, sells hemp jewelry. Just
lives in Berkeley.
Right. Yeah. Berkeley, fucking, he had a rainbow and fucking black flag hanging outside. Essentially he's seems pure, left-wing anarchist. But of course, like I said, he posts a lot of real anti-government shit, and they're trying to, of course, say, is the MAGAs and this and that. So there's a whole controversy going on right now, and
gotcha. Yeah, I'm reading up on it.
Right, and so basically, the whole thing is the timing is very, very odd. Of course, everyone's saying it might be the October surprise that is to be expected around this time of year. During an election season, there's other people, saying that, it's, because of the extreme polarization going on, this and that shit. But basically there's a whole bunch of, like I say, controversy behind one, the phone call from Paul Pelosi. The left wingers are trying to say that he was talking in code. So there's that, odd part of the story. And then the people on the right, and the
fact that the glass was broken out of the house instead of into the house, like somebody was trying to get the fuck out. Right? Yeah. The fact they were both in underwear when the police showed up.
Yep.
Right?
There was some confusion at the beginning because the spokesperson for the police department, for the San Francisco police department, said that they were both holding a hammer. And so a lot of people thought they were, swinging hammers at each other and shit. But I don't know. My opinion is they were probably fighting over a hammer. But at the same time, it is just kind of odd that,
all fucking hammer fisting, bro.
That all this stuff didn't really go down until the police showed up.
One thing to keep in mind is that there's still a significant portion of, of like right-wing type people in the Bay Area, like especially once you go further out the East Bay, like, and that sort of stuff. And especially a lot of the old timer people, that have been there for a long time. So, it's like, it could be either way. He could be trying to, throw things off a different way. And at the same time, it could definitely also just be a really, really confused person, someone that is, maybe sees themselves as like they were really far one way, then really far another way, and I have met people like that, especially out there in the Bay Area activist scene where, you have people believe in all sorts of crazy stuff, right? And like, there's definitely people that were, left-wing Marxists that believed in a lot of stuff that the QAnon stuff was going on too. Or a lot of, similar things like, oh, well, this is a false flag. This is just saying it's this, but it's the capitalist class doing all of this, not our people or whatever. Because George Soros is part of the capitalist class, right? So
fucking 4chan, bro.
Huh?
That's all it is 4chan people, man. Fuck you, QAnon, bro. 4chan
right?
has to be taken down.
Right. So
and then 8chan pops up, and then whatever else is out there.
Right.
But yeah, man, I mean, it's definitely crazy. I mean, yeah, reading about it, like, I definitely imagine, I mean, it could just be a crazy person just acting crazy, though. And unfortunately, I'm worried that we're going to see more instances like this, right, of more crazy people, just trying to do crazy shit like this. Thank God he didn't have a gun, though. Imagine if this had happened in Texas, he would have had AR.
Well, see, that's actually one thing I was thinking. If Paul Pelosi had a gun and would have shot the motherfucker, I'd have tapped my hat to the motherfucker, but... Right, so this is why you need the Second Amendment.
State champion in catch wrestling back in his day.
I'm almost positive, dude. I could be wrong. You guys can fact check me. I'm sure somebody will in the comments. But I'm almost positive he has a concealed weapons license. So I'm sure he does have a firearm, dude.
All right.
You know what I mean?
Lizzie on him.
Furthermore, he's the husband of the third in line for the presidency in America right now. How is it that in San Francisco, in the city, how is it that he does not have private security? And if so, why were they not there that night? Furthermore, where's the footage? The security cameras. They have not had any mention of any security cameras, anything like that. I think they might have said that the security cameras were down that night.
Well, in San Francisco, a lot of times your house is right on the street, so you don't have a whole bunch of cameras just like laying out everywhere. A lot of times you walk directly from the street into your house, like those row houses. Those are usually like multi-million-dollar houses too. So no, I think that definitely all makes sense. And why would Secret Service be protecting the husband of the Speaker of the House, right? I mean, that's like, doesn't really seem like something they would go out of. I don't know. It just, if I was the husband of the Speaker of the House, I'd be like, you guys go watch her. I'm gonna go do my thing. I got this green activist coming over later. We're supposed to.
That's the third most powerful person on the planet, man.
Right.
They definitely, I believe, would protect her spouse. I mean, if you want to, any kind of extortion, kidnapping type situation, like a Mexico thing, that's a perfect target, man.
Right. Another thing.
I guess you're right. I mean, it makes sense in retrospect, but I can also just see how someone like that probably wouldn't feel like it's necessary. Like, no, protect her. Like, I'm gonna go do my thing. I wouldn't want to have Secret Service walking with me everywhere. You know what I mean? Especially when you're a businessman or whatever he does.
Insider trader.
Yeah.
A clairvoyant in the stock market.
I'm sure he's a great grandpa.
All right. So another thing that was
cocaine.
So
he's 82, man. He's an old guy.
Right. That's the one thing that I'm finding odd, dude. So if this guy was, coming to assassinate Nancy Pelosi, because he's allegedly he was walking around the house shouting out, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?" For one, why would he not be aware of the fact that Nancy Pelosi is literally on the other side of the fucking nation? Why would he not be aware of that? Why would he not be aware of where Nancy Pelosi's at if he's coming to assassinate her? And then
if you're coming to assassinate, why would you come in underwear?
Right. You came to party, bro.
Right. I mean, they were hammer fisting, bro. Fuck.
Right. They're hammering out the details.
There's an alleged story going around that he met this person earlier in the night at a gay bar. Right. I mean, again, the glass broken out of the house.
Right.
Supposedly, a third party also contacted the police from the property. That let the police in once they arrived. Right. A third party, and it was a guy. You know what I mean? I mean, there's so many weird discrepancies to the story, man. And some of them, obviously, you want to take with a grain of salt. But when you go to ground news and it's covered by multiple sources. I mean, you're like, damn, it's kind of hard to not take serious at that point, right? And I don't mean covered by CNN and shit like that. I mean, like more reliable news sources, preferably foreign. Really, I'll watch.
Skull fracture as well as injuries to the hands and right arm.
Right, that's terrible. I mean, of course, that's fucking terrible. You don't want to see that happen to some old guy, regardless of your political affiliation, right?
Right.
But the thing is they're trying to politicize it just in time for the midterms. It's the old adaptation of never let shit go to waste, man.
Well, we saw something similar too with the North Dakota incident, right, where there was someone that tried to run over another kid. I think he was running over like some 18-year-old person because he said that he thought he was like a Trump supporter or something. And then Fox News jumped all over it and said, oh, well, look at the rhetoric that because of what Biden's saying, all this sort of stuff. That's why people are doing this. So, yeah, I think, you're right. I mean, that is more of just, people trying to use that as like, leverage against the other side. See what your people are doing, So, yeah.
They're trying to start a civil war, bro. The media is the great divider right now. And I'm on both sides, you know what I mean? And it is radicalizing people. You can see it, you can feel it. It's almost like a mass tension, like a waiting to exhale type something. Like something's going to happen. A collective holding of the breath, man.
I actually made a meme back in January. I'll actually throw it up right here. But it's basically, it's a woman reading tarot cards, and it's like, in 2022 you will be enticed into a civil war by the media. And it's all the Facebook, Twitters, and all the different media cards and shit on the table. But pretty crazy, man. I made that back in January, and lo and behold, here we go.
Yeah, I don't think it'll ever get to that point. Though,
I don't either. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think. I think we're in the midst of one now. I don't think it's going to be like an 1800 civil war where we're out here blasting each other in the face. It's more a war of the mind, man.
Right, an ideological war, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think that ideological war has always been there. I think and even when you look at like the political, discord that was happening 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 150 years ago, you're going to always see like fundamental differences, two main factions, and like a couple of really big wedge issues that everybody's kind of galvanizing towards. And the thing that kind of works out, unfortunately, I guess fortunately for my side, unfortunately for you guys' side, is that usually in retrospect, the liberals are right. So
when?
I mean,
when?
We're right about slavery. Who are the abolitionists? You know what I mean? And then it's like women's rights.
The abolitionists were the Republicans.
Women's suffrage. Well,
but then at the same time,
yeah, they were the Republicans, but they were the progressives of that time. You know what I mean? Like they were the other people were like, slavery's the way of this is the natural law, the natural order of things is slavery. It says in the Bible, slavery. Like, of course, you know what I mean?
I think it's absolutely ridiculous to still consider the Democratic Party as liberals, though. I mean, we call them libs and things like that, but I think it's ultimately completely, they're so beyond liberals. I mean, the Democratic Party has become the party of intolerance.
Started the KKK. They fucking... we could just keep going. They're actually the party of segregation.
Started the KKK,
and it's Democrats. It's Democrats. It's always like there's a distinction. Like earlier, you were saying like Republicans have one main ideology, and then we're loose on that. But then when you point out that hey, they did this, you're like, oh well, that's this part of the party.
Because
like, no,
the
it's the Democrat ideology.
Is completely different
it's still
now
today.
Than it was 100
it's
years
still
ago.
Today. No, it's not. You're still preaching segregation. Safe spaces and all this affirmative action, all this shit is going back to segregation. Your progressive ideas are taking us back to the 50s, man. For real.
What do you mean? Like back to segregation? How does that come into place?
I just got done telling you that. How it's a constant fucking, we need safe spaces, cultural fucking centers where white people aren't allowed. We have blacks only. We have a black caucus. We have the United Negro College Fund. There's so many divisive things, affirmative action. Actually, all that is segregation.
Actually,
and it's racist as fuck.
Quick point. Fucking interesting thing about the Hispanic caucus. So Myra Flores was not allowed to join the Hispanic caucus. She is the only person in Congress that is actually born in Mexico, and she is not allowed to join the Hispanic caucus because she's not a Democrat.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Hispanic caucus for Democrats. Is that what it is?
No, it's a caucus for Hispanic people in Congress. It's a bipartisan caucus. It's a bipartisan caucus of just for.
I mean, that's interesting though,
people.
just because I feel like there are a lot of Hispanic Republicans though. Just in general, so that is interesting. I mean, is it because she's a Republican, or is it because she's a specific type of Republican? You know what I mean? Like, is she like one of those like Marjorie Taylor type people, or
that's the question.
You know what
I mean, regardless, I mean, the Democratic Party is supposed to be the party of tolerance, and basically, if you are a Hispanic person,
the label that you
right?
guys put on us, you never came out and said we're the party of tolerance. You know, and tolerance isn't even that great of an ideal. Tolerance is a common American ideal that everybody believes in. Tolerance is just
apparently
saying,
not the
I believe
Democrats.
you can do what you do.
Every Democrat there is
and,
preaches
you know,
diversity and equality.
Yeah, diversity and equality is different than tolerance. You know, I'd say that we're like there's more of a movement of acceptance by a lot of people on the Democratic Party.
It's not tolerance;
right?
it's
they
racial
want to
segregation.
Different things. Well,
it's racial segregation. Just because it benefits one group.
Segregation. Yeah, I mean, so things can be racially divisive, but without calling it segregation. Like segregation saying you stay over there, we stay over here, and there is some of that on the left side right now. And you see that a lot with the whole dating stuff. You see a lot of criticism from people that are supposedly progressive for people dating outside their own race, and it's really weird. I will admit that. Yeah, and that's something I feel like is bigger now because of, I don't know, social media or something, but I see it a lot in the Asian American dating scene.
But then again, in places like in places like New York, depending on your sexual preference, what you like to put into your mouth, that depends on what part of the line you are for public housing and things like that. And that's it's something else that just recently came out. Yeah, I
don't know about that, but those things a lot of times are really specific, and it can be taken a different way. Like, is that is it that gay people get in front of the line first, or is it that they're trying to rectify the fact that trans people have been excluded from this program for so long? So now that they're expediting a certain number
how have they been excluded
from the LGBT community? I don't know, dude. That's what I'm saying. That's a New York thing. I don't know what's going on in New York. You know what I mean? And you're talking about something very specific that you got off of some right-wing headline, right? That's talking about, because I've never heard of that. Gay people get public housing quicker. Like
they're actually they were yelling at AOC, I believe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's saying it's housing for LGBTQ. No, I'm just making the point. I know, but I'm just telling you the point. Because my question is not
well, that's
just unfair. That's like racist. That's like racist against straight people.
But
I don't know what again, any of that sort of stuff.
But anyway, besides that,
he said, I don't know.
I mean, okay, so let's take it back to something like affirmative action. How is it that giving one race preference over another? And again, what defines victimhood? What defines who is the bigger victim than the other? What defines who is more socially downtrodden than another group? How do you define that? Is it by annual income? Is it by how many people of a certain color are CEOs as opposed to people of that are not that same color? Like, how do you define social inequality? Especially in today's America.
I know I've been talking a lot lately. Ryan, you want to go first on that, and then I can go second.
I mean, to me, it's I wouldn't even know where to guess on that because you guys know my views. I'm about self accountability, responsibility. I came from shit. I grew up, in a horrible ass neighborhood, and while I'm not living in a mansion now, I try to stay in halfway decent vehicles, home, neighborhood, whatnot, and it's all off my back. So, and I came from the same place as a vast majority of these other groups of people that are considered, more downtrodden than myself, and under the same circumstances, with the education process, no father in the house, yada, yada, yada. Everything that's used as a crutch to give these people my tax dollars, I lived through, and I'm contributing now to their fucking monthly income. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't be the one to ask that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But before you answer, John, I hope that you take a minute and your answer does anything but mention centuries ago. You know what I mean? Because I don't.
That's why I said. That's why I said in today's America. Today's America.
I mean,
within the last decade.
Yeah. So the reason why we have affirmative action doesn't have anything to do with centuries ago. It has, again, something to do with recent history. You know what I mean? So it's recent history that, that a lot of people were excluded from a lot of the wealth gains that happened as a result of post-World War II economic boom, right? So this is recent history. This is, things that is a big reason why they're trying to rectify certain things, right? To get specifically as to like different affirmative action things, I mean, you have to look at each one and why it's there, So like what I'm talking about recently in terms of like, the idea of white flight and the disinvestment in Black communities, that's the reason why there might be, loans or programs geared towards minority investment of neighborhoods, of houses, and that sort of stuff, right? So I know, like in Chicago, there was, grants for minority-owned businesses in historically minority-owned neighborhoods, and one of the reasons they're doing that is because one of the biggest criticisms whenever there is renovations in a minority neighborhood, typically a poor neighborhood, a lot of times it comes from outside money, and there's something they call gentrification, because they say it's not making the neighborhood for us, they're making the neighborhood for other people to come move in, right? So it changes that dynamic of a neighborhood where a lot of people have been there for hundreds of years.
Or is it gentrification?
So what I'm just talking about something different. So I'm saying each one has there's reasons why there's things for housing loans, right? That's something that's different. And then as far as like, the business grants, that's something that's different also. You know what I mean? There's different situations that are going on. Do I think, could affirmative action be abused? For sure. But there's some things that like, it's good to have a fair representation of employees that makes sense with the demographics of your area, right? So if I'm in Southern Arizona, right, and I'm hiring, a sales team or something, and I know we're going to be spread out all over Tucson, then chances are my sales guys and sales leaders are going to look a lot like the people of Tucson. It's going to be mostly white and Hispanic people. You know what I mean? So that's just how people in Tucson look, right? Now, if I'm in LA, that might be different. If I'm in the Bay Area, that might be different, right? It's about, connecting with people, about, making sure that you have, it's not so like narrow and focus on culture, right? So that's smart just from a business perspective. It's like, if I want to attract as many customers as possible, I don't want to have just Asian people working for me. I want my sales force to be just like the people that are in the neighborhood, people that are in the community, and I don't think that needs to be necessarily enforced on like a level of otherwise you can't hire people or something like that. But that's something that just a good leader would do just in general,
Well,
and then the other thing I guess that I can add on to that is one reason why affirmative action does exist in terms of federal jobs and government roles is because, or racial quotas that also exist sometimes, is because there is implicit bias. And a lot of times when you are hiring somebody, you're looking for someone that reminds you of yourself, even if you don't necessarily say that. A lot of times it's like, oh yeah, that's just like me. And you think, man, I'm a hard worker. I'm great at this job. Why wouldn't I want someone just like me, But then you get too many people that are just like you. It becomes a very narrow culture in the office. So it's one of those things where you want to get people that aren't necessarily like you, that have other qualities, other traits, they have other backgrounds. And I also think when it comes to diversity, it's not just diversity in terms of skin color, right? But it's good to have diversity in terms of ideologies and diversity in terms of, different like demographics, because I think at the end of the day, white and black and different colors we are matter a lot less than what social economic group we were raised in. And that's a big difference. You know what I mean? Like if you're raised like in a real nice neighborhood versus a real poor neighborhood versus middle class, and you're going to have similar bonds or differences on that.
Right.
Are you familiar?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, bro. Are you familiar with the bell curve, John?
No.
What'd you say?
The bell curve? No. Just please explain.
The bell curve is supposed to be like a scientific method that shows that geographics plays a massive part in IQ level. You know what I mean? And like there's been people that have actually been removed from pretty large platforms, 1 million+ subscribers, billion downloads, for using this scientific method, because it's termed as using science for racist purposes apparently. But it puts, like, for instance, Asians at the way high end, you know what I mean, of the scale as far as geographics dictating intellect. And statistically, when you go to places like Africa, the Middle East, Mexico even, the IQs tend to fall drastically. You know what I mean? And it's a pattern that's there. And me saying you're at the higher end, right? So of the intellect scale, if you use the scientific method, so I would want to hire you over someone that would statistically be at the lower end of that. You're not going to consider it racist for me telling you're at the top, but yet someone will consider it racist for telling them they're at the bottom. You know what I mean? And that's what affirmative action does. It literally dilutes talent. It brings in people based off of sex, gender. You know what I mean? However the loon two separate the two, but you get the point. Skin tone, yada yada, and you see the quality of that. I mean, you got Camel in office right now. That's strictly a diversity hire, man. She's a complete babbling fucking moron. You know what I'm saying?
Kamala Harris?
Yeah.
Kamala Harris is well qualified, man. You gotta look at it this way. She was the DA, right, of Oakland.
Of a corrupt,
you know what I mean? We're talking about
government.
we're talking about a very highly populated area right there. And then she was an attorney general in the most populous state. I mean, if you're being the attorney general in the most populous state, or was it attorney general or senator? I'm sorry, no, she was both, right?
She was
attorney
both,
general and then senator. Yeah.
Again,
that's a well qualified
hires, and that's doing sexual favors, man, and keeping inmates in past their date for slave labor for the state of California does not qualify you to regulate the country. You know what
I
I'm
would
saying?
say though that's kind of in line with what most politicians do. So while again, like Kamala Harris is not a friend of the left, right? And I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm a Kamala Harris fan or anything, but I will say in terms of what all the politicians do in America and all the stuff that they have done and everything, it is in line with what you have to do in order to get ahead politically. And so, it's like, can we be mad at I don't know if you guys watch like Game of Thrones or any of that sort of stuff, but it's like on House of Dragons, right? I mean, can you really be mad at the Black Queen now for what she's about to do after watching, her kid get, eaten up? Spoiler alert, by the way, guys. But
we've seen it.
Okay, gotcha.
Right.
But it's just, yeah.
From being, you're comparing someone's wrath from the death of their child to someone being incompetent. I mean, you can't be blind, bro. Regardless
at the end of the day, the prison complex is fucked up, man. There's no, I mean, yes.
Listen to her words.
For sure.
Listen to her words. She is incompetent, buddy. If you want, I can send you a whole bunch of videos. Brian, light it up at the end of this, bro.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, little clips of bloopers I don't think really prove anything. I mean, again,
it's
like I think
verbatim speeches. It's verbatim speeches.
I'm not a big fan of her, but at the end of the day, I think she's in line with a well qualified candidate, an attorney general, a senator. That all that stuff is the right qualifications you need in order to get into a VP role. Which, by the way, a VP is seen as the most useless position. So it's like you don't really do anything.
Well, they definitely picked the right person for that role, huh, buddy?
I mean, and VPs typically are people we make fun of. I mean, Joe Biden was a person we made fun of when Obama was president, right? So Sleepy Joe, things like that. And then, Dick Cheney, he was the mastermind behind Bush. That was the kind of the idea there. But then, way back in the day, Dan Quayle was kind of seen as a buffoon. Al Gore was seen as a robot. The VP is someone that's kind of a punching bag, so to take the heat off the president for a little bit.
I haven't seen anyone take heat besides her and fucking Dan Quayle. Really? I mean, Cheney, of course, everyone hates Darth Vader, but
yeah,
that's wrong.
Yeah, he was Senator Palpatine for sure.
Right.
All right, you guys. Well, I got to go ahead and get ready to wrap it up here. I got a kid screaming in the background. So, man, I appreciate you guys hopping on and freaking great discussion today, man. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Damn good show. Good to see you guys, man. I appreciate the time.
Now, yeah.
Oh yeah, good stuff, guys.
You guys want to smoke one out for the road?
Sure.
All righty, man. All right, so if you guys are not subscribed, make sure you guys subscribe, hit up the Liberty Swine channel. Fucking find us on social media. All our stuff is running across the bottom down here.
Come to Rumble and Bitch Shoot.
Right, definitely find us on Alt Tech. Find us on Alt Tech, people. All right, well, appreciate you guys. Subscribe, share. Fuck off.
Goodness, good athlete.
All right.